Peridot, come on, we gotta stop. Are you listening to me? Why won't you look at me?
As the end of Steven Universe Future draws closer, it becomes increasingly more apparent in every passing episode that our titular character is falling deeper and deeper down the hole of self-loathing, loneliness, and despair. Each episode has indicated that Steven is in a dark place right now, as far as emotionally as well as mentally. What makes matters worse is that he thinks he's alone in his time of crisis, making him feel as if there's no way out or that nothing is going to change. While there's more than one episode that portrays this feeling of overwhelming dread, today we're only going to be looking at one of those episodes, that episode being In Dreams. I'm going to analyze the symbolism in Steven's dreams, as well as explain the meaning and significance behind certain scenes. With that said, let's get on to the analysis. The episode starts out with Steven having a nightmare in which he walks in on everybody having a party without him. When he tries to join, the entrance to the beach house disappears and he's trapped outside. No one exits the party or even seems to notice that Steven is on the other side and trying to get in to join them. A cookie cat face that is now replacing the face of Obsidian asks Steven why he's still there since no one needs his help any longer. Of course, none of this is real, so when the floor comes out from underneath him and he falls, he wakes up safe and sound in his bed. Now, there's quite a few things to look at even in just this small sequence. In the very first portion of this scene, Steven is walking along the beach when he stumbles across a party being thrown inside his home. Due to his initial surprise, it's implied that he either didn't know that this party was going on and/or he wasn't invited. When he tries to get in, the door disappears from right underneath his fingertips, along with the window and any other means of getting in or seeing what's going on. Even when he was looking in on this party, it was from the other side of the building with a literal wall separating him from his friends and family on the inside. It should be obvious at this point, but the party is symbolism for those who have moved on with their lives. Everyone who is on the other side of that wall has either moved on or begun moving on from the events of the past. Now that the diamonds have been defeated and the galaxy is saved, they can afford to do so. Lars and the off-colors, Garnet, Amethyst, Pearl, and Connie all have their own lives that are no longer deeply connected to Steven's and the ever-looming threat of Homeworld. Pearl is out socializing with humans and has her own human friend group, Amethyst is teaching at Little Homeschool, Garnet is off doing things separately as Ruby and Sapphire, Lars and the off-colors are exploring space, etc. All of these things Steven isn't involved in and knows very little about, in addition to him feeling like he's stuck in the same place since the start of Era 3. Everyone close to him in his life no longer needs help, and they're all moving on and living happy lives. He also doesn't feel he has the right to disrupt that by letting them know what's going on in his life, since it would mean pausing their new lives to help him. From his perspective, he's stuck and he's being left behind due to his own inability to move past his trauma. He doesn't want to impose on anyone like he had been imposed on when he was a child, and so this causes him to self-isolate. This is what the wall both subtly as well as literally symbolizes. The entrances disappear because he feels as if he cannot follow them into the future when he's stuck in the past. This is when the floor gives out from underneath him, giving us the next big piece of symbolism. When it comes to dream interpretations, disappearing floors or falling through a floor indicates that your perspective or understanding of certain situations may be an illusion that will lead to eventual failure. You are losing your awareness of yourself, and the support around you may also be disappearing. The dream signals that your ego and confidence is under attack and disappearing fast. Soon you might not have a basis to stand on. This is only further emphasized by how he's falling away from his home and friends, desperately grabbing at them as he does. As further touched upon in the episode Growing Pains, Steven feels as though his strong support system is disappearing and he's being left alone. Even though the gems are still there for him, they aren't nearly as close as they used to be. When he was younger, it was only the four of them: Garnet, Amethyst, Pearl, and himself. And of course, he also had Greg. They were each other's support system, and they were always there to pick each other up when they were feeling down. Now, with the return and addition of other gems as well as humans, they don't really have the same dynamic anymore. Sure, they still live in the same house, and sure, they still care for each other, but it isn't the same, and they certainly aren't as close as they used to be. This is something that naturally happens with friendships and relationships in general. As people get older and move on with their lives, they begin to drift away. We see examples of this in both Little Graduation as well as Together together forever. Even familial relationships degrade over time if a child pushes a parent away or if they move away for school or work. Steven falling away from his house and through the floor indicates that he feels he's drifting away from his family and losing his supportive relationships in the process. Once this scene ends, we're brought to Peridot barging into the beach house to watch the reboot of Camp Pining Hearts with Steven. Steven is automatically relieved and pushes the nightmare aside because while everyone else is out and doing their own thing, he at least has Peridot to talk to. However, Peridot cuts him off to watch the show and only further reaffirms his thought process that he shouldn't be bothering others with his problems. She doesn't intentionally do this, of course, but it's enough to stop him from talking about it.
You know, I'm so glad you're here. I've been having some weird dreams lately.
Shh, that's great. Now press play, you monster!
Then when the remake is proven to be garbage and the duo find out that Steven can fix it with his dreams, he's ecstatic. One thing that Steven is comfortable doing is fixing the problems of others, no matter how small. Having this Camp Pining Hearts dilemma means that while they're trying to solve the issue, Steven won't be alone because Peridot will be with him. And if it means he's no longer alone, Steven is willing to try and fix this problem to extend his time with his friend even for just a little bit longer. However, Steven's dreams are unable to help the duo, as each one only further becomes more and more distorted. With the introduction of Stefan, we get a few things from his dreams. The first big thing is the inclusion of the diamonds as a dolphin, pineapple, and well, feet. So what does dreaming about dolphins, pineapple, and feet mean? To see a dolphin represents your ability to explore and navigate through your emotions. Pineapple in your dream represents self-confidence and pride with your work. And to dream of very big feet means that you are healthy and living a stable life. After seeing these fever dream versions of the diamonds, Rodrigo asks Stefan what's wrong before he turns into Steven, who then turns into Pink Steven. While this imagery usually suggests pleasant feelings, the inclusion of Pink Steven may hint at these things meaning the inverse of what they normally would. So the appearance of a dolphin means that Steven has the inability to explore and navigate through his feelings, the pineapple means he has no self-confidence or pride in his work, and the feet mean that he is not currently living a healthy or stable life. When Pink Steven emerges, Steven wakes up from the dream and cuts off from the TV. As the dreams continue in their attempts to make the perfect dream, they continue to become more and more unhinged. Rodrigo turns into Dogcopter and flies away from him, which then later becomes the Gems who fly away from Stefan. This further plays on the core problem of the episode, that being that Steven feels as though everyone is leaving and drifting away from him because he cannot help them any longer. We also see other sources of Steven's trauma beginning to surface in the dream, including Spinell's injector and Steven as a baby with his gem exposed. Because of his trauma interjecting itself into his dreams, Peridot suggests that they stop trying to do the redream and just give up on it. This means that Peridot is going to leave and stop hanging out with Steven, which causes him to panic. Because he doesn't want to be left alone, he agrees to do the redream again even though he doesn't want to.
I can't do Rodrigo dirty like that.
Look, Steven, you seem pretty agitated. Let's just call this whole thing off.
No, wait! I'll do it.
He doesn't want her to leave him alone, even if it means self-detriment on his end. And this is when things begin to become interesting. The dream goes along normally until Stefan tries to kiss Jasmine, who turns into Connie. Connie then becomes Obsidian, who keeps her face. When someone transforms or becomes an entirely different person in your dream, it likely means that you're afraid the person who you're thinking of is changing and becoming a different person. Because Jasmine was the one who transformed into a Connie Obsidian fusion, it isn't too far-fetched to say that Steven is afraid of the people closest to him moving on and changing without him. While this obviously includes Connie, it also includes Amethyst, Pearl, and Garnet since they're the ones who make up Obsidian along with Steven. It isn't too far-fetched to say that Steven is afraid of people changing and moving on without him. The Connie Obsidian fusion stomps on Steven, seemingly waking him back up. However, if you pay close attention, Steven is waking up in his old bedroom from when he was 14 instead of his current bedroom in the beach house. You can tell by the furniture placement as well as the room layout that these two places are different. This is even a clearer indication that Steven is stuck in the past and unable to move forward, since even in his dreams, he's still stuck in his old room. Peridot is still in Steven's room with him, but when she turns around, her visor is displaying SMPTE color bars rather than showing her eyes. This symbolizes that Steven is now feeling distant from Peridot as well, as if she cannot see or is losing her connection with Steven. This is supported by the fact that you usually see SMPTE color bars on your TV when you've lost your satellite or cable connection. connection. Now that there's no problem for him to solve with her, there's no reason for her to be around him. No reason for them to share a bond. Or at least that's how Steven feels. Peridot is then seen walking towards the new temple house where the party is continuing as if she's about to join the others. Steven begs her not to enter the house because it means that he's also going to lose his connection with her. She's going to move on and then have no reason to be around him or hang out with him.
We've always had something to fix together. I don't think I know how to be a friend without something to fix. I'm sorry, I can't do this for you. Please don't leave.
He explains that he still wants to hang out with Peridot, but the floor falls out from underneath him again, and as I stated earlier, disappearing floors or falling through a floor indicates that support around you may be disappearing. He manages to cling onto the side of the house and talk to Peridot, admitting that he doesn't know how to hang out with others if it doesn't involve fixing a problem. He then begs her to stay even if he can't fix Camp Pining Hearts with her because he doesn't want to lose her or be left alone just because there isn't a reason for them to be around each other. Steven then wakes up from his dream and is greeted by a distressed Peridot who reassures him that it's okay and that they can just hang out with each other even if it doesn't involve fixing something. The episode ends with the two watching CPH and just having fun with it rather than taking it too seriously. There's a lot to take away from this episode, but the main thing is that the way Steven believes he needs to interact with people to have a relationship with them isn't healthy. Since he was a little kid, all of his relationships were built on the necessity of staying alive and fixing problems. You had his relationship with the gems, and while strong, the main reason he had that relationship with them was so that they could teach him about his gem powers. Then as he got older, their interactions were needed because of the constant threat of Homeworld. Even with Peridot, they developed a friendship because they needed to work together to stop the cluster. And if you remember, at first Peridot didn't even want to be friends with Steven. The only reason why she became friends with him was because she was afraid of the cluster. All of his relationships were built off of solving problems, and that led him to having a hard time now that there's no more problems to solve. In his mind, if there's nothing to resolve, then all of these people no longer have a reason to be around him. Pearl is slowly getting over her war trauma and love for Rose, so her problem has been solved. Amethyst has been getting over her self-esteem and self-worth issues, so her problem has been solved. Garnet no longer worries about being unable to predict the future, and so her problems are solved. There's nothing Steven can help them with, so now he's left not knowing how to interact with them. While Steven himself didn't choose to tell Peridot what was going on, his dreams projecting themselves onto the TV did it for him. Steven reaching out to Peridot and asking her not to leave was his cry for help, and the start of him rebuilding his relationships with those he loves on healthy terms. As far as symbolism goes, that's about all there is to this episode. I, for one, am very much looking forward to seeing how Steven deals with his relationships in the future. If you liked this video and would like to see more content like this, why not subscribe and hit the bell icon to see more from me from when I upload. Special thank you to my top tier patrons, Ambrose Rothwood, Brandon Nunes, The Lovely Ghosty, Lee Taylor, and Zachary Ansley. Because of people like them, I can continue to make content like this, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Have an amazing day, everyone.